Yes, I am upset with the education system.
Why isn't there change or innovation in education? Tell me. Right now it seems like we're preparing students for our past and not their future.
I do think we need change. Now.
Talking education all across the nation. Schink10 and Big Ron.
Innovation in education all across the nation. It's amazing. Can't get you together like constipation, procrastination. Where's the imagination? I do think we need change. Now. Good day to everyone, everywhere. I'm Oliver Schink10, and this is the Transforming Education Podcast, Episode 1. And I am happy to announce that in the booth with me is famous rapper,
Come on,
Big Ron Crowley.
Hey,
Ron.
We talked about it. I'm not going to famous rapper.
Hey, we talked about it. There's nothing official. I didn't sign any contracts.
Yeah, come on, man.
No, but man, I think your story's cool. I think that you're a famous rapper. You've had a lot of success with that, and now you decided you're passionate about education. You want to dedicate your time towards that. I think that's a story that needs to be told.
I don't want to talk about the rap stuff, though.
I think it's a story that needs to be told.
Okay,
I think it's pretty cool.
I'm here to focus on the education aspect of this, and that is now what I'm passionate about, and I don't want to come on here and make a big fiasco about, oh, you're a famous rapper and all that kind of stuff. I'm here to talk about education and try to get some change in education, and that's really what I'm about now.
That's cool. I can respect that. But to think that the rap stuff is not going to come up at all, man, that's crazy. You know we're going to talk about that.
It's going to come up a little bit.
We have to. Ron, tell me right now, what do you think that this podcast is all about?
Well, now, come on, man. I mean, like, you're the host of the podcast. You don't know what the podcast is about?
I know what it's about. I know what it means to me. I know what it is to me. What is it to you?
Well, I think that we need change in education, big time.
Amen.
I don't think the current system we have is conducive to the real world in which we live.
Not at all.
And I think students deserve better. I think we need to start providing a quality education for our students, and I am here to help assist that in any way that I can.
That's cool, man. I respect that completely, absolutely. And my reasoning really is very similar to that. And, another part of it, though, and this is something I know you believe in, Ron, but it's just the fact that not only to be here and say the sky is falling and education needs help and education is not good right now, but to start to say some of the reasons why, and to put those difficult conversations out on the table and to start having them. Because one thing I've noticed is that teachers, administrators, we avoid these conversations, and that's crazy to me. They're ones that need to be had, but as soon as we get around other people, it's like, oh, don't talk about that now. There'll be some friction. Oh. And to do that, also to offer up some solutions. Because without it, we're complaining, but we're not serving up any solutions. And to me, that's contributing to the problem. That's why education hasn't changed for over 100 years.
It hasn't. And that reminds me of a joke that I heard a couple months ago that says, how many teachers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know how many.
Teachers change.
Okay, now easy, Ron. I'm a teacher, man. I'm a teacher. And that's a false representation of teachers.
I haven't seen much change.
A lot of the crazy initiatives were handed down, and it just increasing with all this stuff from the top down to the bottom. It's making it difficult to go inside your classroom and actually teach. So I don't blame the teachers, although I do see merit in what you're saying. Because, like I said, there's a lot of teachers that complain right now and say we need change, but by nature, they are afraid to have these difficult conversations. They are afraid to innovate and to change and to really, go above the status quo. They're not afraid to work. They work harder than anybody, but you're right. I mean, there's not change. And so I guess at first I was offended a little bit because I am a teacher, but I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, I do.
Of course, man. I mean, it reminds me, I think the best story I heard today was the one you were telling me before the show started. With that, what you ask when you're speaking. Tell them that story.
Well, you're right. Okay, so this year I've had the opportunity to speak to many groups, of teachers in many different cities across the United States. And one of the things I do when I speak is I always, it's usually to a large group of teachers or administrators, people involved in the schools. And I've started out my talks by saying, what is the purpose of school? And to tell you the truth, I could count the number of answers I've received on one hand. I mean, I've received hardly any answers. Everybody just sits there. And then I pull that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be quiet for a little while and wait for the class to come up with an answer. And you have this awkward pause, an awkward pause, an awkward pause, and there's no answers. One of the most intelligent things I heard was somebody had said, do you mean like what the purpose is or what it should be? And I said, well, that's a wonderful answer. But to me, the fact that even has to be a question represents a major problem. I mean, what it is or what it should be, why isn't it what it should be? That's a problem that I have. And, and then at the end, they're kind of like, okay, so what's the answer? And I'm like, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I don't know what it is, but it's worrisome to me that you can take a profession that, I've been there in the trenches, I've seen behind the scenes. They possibly work harder than any other profession. I know they don't receive the credit for that, but man, they go 7.5 hours at school, and that's what people are like. Oh, you only work 7.5 hours a day, but after that, they're going home and working, and putting in all these hours. And also, I believe that they're extremely compassionate about kids and about the students in their class. So it's worrisome to me that you have these people that are working so hard and are so compassionate about kids and trying to help them, yet they can't even answer the question, what is the purpose of school? What is it? What is the purpose of school?
I don't know what it is either. I mean, that is, it seems to me like they should almost take like a time out, a recess in education and be like, okay, we're going to go for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't even care what it takes, but until we figure out what the purpose of this endeavor is, we can't even have it. Because right now, I love a quote by Seth Godin when he says in Stop Stealing Dreams, what is school for? If you're not asking that, you're wasting time and money. And I believe that, that we need to start questioning, what are we even doing? It's an average of about $9,000 per child going to school. It's a lot of time for children, for teachers, for everyone involved. I mean, parents, the community, everyone. And to look at it and say, what is the purpose of this? You have to have a purpose. Isn't that what they preach in the schools, is to have these goals and to come up with them and work towards them? Well, what's your own goal?
What's your own goal? I like that. That should almost be like t-shirts or something that we're wearing. Like, what's your own goal? Well, Ron, one thing I want to do quick is transition. We're almost out of time, which is kind of crazy here. But to offer up our topic of the day, and I think we need to get to that. So we're going to offer up the topic of the day. We're going to play a little bit of this music always before the topic of the day. So I almost want to get you to rap on that.
Hey, we did. Stop, man. We just talked about that.
All right, no. Okay, so topic of the day. So our topic today is something that I will put all my money on. I'm all in, man. I'll put all my chips in that we are entering the age of what can you do. All right, we're leaving the age of what do you have or what degree do you have, and we are entering the age of what can you do. You look back and you can go to school all you want, but you learn a ton about mitosis and all the stages of photosynthesis and the Pythagorean theorem, and and then all of a sudden you read Grapes of Wrath and you learned about the War of 1812. But at the end of the day, what can you do? What can you do? What are you doing? What job are you going to go get? What I just don't understand it. So really, it's going to come down right now in this age that is with technology being so big and changing the game so much. We're looking for innovation. We're looking for people who can learn how to learn really quickly and can have something that they are absolutely passionate about.
But one thing though, is that a lot of these jobs, doctor. I'm a doctor. I'm nurse. I'm all that type of stuff. Like, I can't be like, I just went and learned that on my own. Like, okay, yeah, I went on YouTube and I learned how to do surgery and stuff. So now hire me as a surgeon.
No,
I mean,
come on. Hey, there's still some jobs that you're going to need formal education for, and that you're going to need that. But the whole concept of college, you want to talk about college? You know, college is the only thing I think that's behind K-12 as far as evolving. Like, honestly, I mean, right now they have the shackles and the handcuffs on K-12. I mean,
let's go.
you ask students why they're there, it's because they're trying to get into college. Well, that's as outdated as anything. And to tell you the truth, I mean, right now it makes great sense to say, hey, we want you to be this well-rounded citizen, so you're going to have to take all these different credits in all these different fields and be so well-rounded. Yeah, that's great until I'm paying about $3,000-$4,000 per class. Now that doesn't become an option. I got to go learn what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to become well-rounded somewhere else where it's not so expensive, because we're paying all this money to get these big gigantic buildings to go up and stuff. Well, so I just think that, truthfully, yes, a doctor is going to have to go get specific training in that field, you know, and nurses, and there's jobs out there obviously like that. But for the most part, all the jobs that are being created now that are new jobs are more innovation. You can't train in them. We don't even know them yet.
Okay, so I'll play devil's advocate a little bit, but I believe this. Don't you think that someone then who has gone to college is showing that they have the grit? You know, because they've made it through all of high school and did good enough to get accepted into college, and now they're in college, they get all the way through that. That's difficult to do. So don't you look at someone like that and say that they have a high level of grit?
No. Oh, I feel like you're trying to get me mad on this one, but no, I don't look at that and say they have a high level of grit. I think they have a high level of compliance. They bought into the system right away. They were obedient. You know, they checked everything off the checklist that they were supposed to do. They followed the steps, and they did it. You know, power to them that they had the money to go there in the first place, or that they were able to take out the loans, probably had support and everything. But then they just followed it, you know, based on the fact because everybody's telling them to do it because it's the right thing to do. And it was for the what do you have, what degree do you have age. But it's not going to be for the what can you do age. You know, I represent someone who, in high school, you know what, I didn't try that hard, honestly. I don't even know what I learned. There's a lot of stuff I didn't do well, and I look back at that. Not that I'm proud of that, but, you know, I got a 3.4 grade point average, whatever, got into college. You know, it was there. To tell you the truth, my main thing at college, I played a ton of, like, intramural and pick up basketball all the time. I hung out with friends, you know, we hung out, whatever, you know, and learning wasn't the main thing there. I did what I had to do to get about a 3.4 again, to get degrees in psychology and math and biology and, you know, education. But man, it's just following steps. I'm not even really sure what I learned in all of that. I had to memorize a ton of stuff, but it's not like I recalled all of it. You know, I think one of the best leaders on this whole topic right now is probably my favorite company, Google. Google just released, you know, I love what they're doing. And they just released their thing saying that, you know, they did a big study and found that GPA and test scores had no correlation to how effective of workers they had. You know, so they actually took it and they kind of scratched that out of their formula for who they hire. And I saw an article that they're up to like 14% of the employees there don't even have a college degree. You know why? Because they're leading the way and we're entering the age of what can you do. I don't look at that as having a ton of grit. They complied. I might look at that as an employer and say, well, that's poor decision making that you just spent $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to go to an institution when you got stuff like lynda.com and YouTube. You know, go learn your stuff, man. If you're motivated to learn, go learn.
Yeah, that makes sense. But and before I did get into rapping, you know, I spent some time as an investment banker.
No way.
No, I really did. Yeah, I was also an investment banker. And one thing I know is that awesome. I made a lot of connections when I went to college. You know, so I would look at that as another thing, that going there at like a university. Man. You make a lot of healthy connections.
Man, how many of those connections did you make on social media, and did you make via technology?
Via technology, man. We didn't have technology when I was going there.
That's my point exactly. Man, the world has changed. That's great that you made connections back in the 1980s or whatever the heck you did. People are making connections now via social media. man, I know 10,000 plus people that I never knew before, all across the world, and we're connected now, and a lot of people are not. There's probably a lot of people right now being like, I'm not that connected. I'll keep saying this. If you're not connected, you're disconnected. But if you want to be connected, you don't got to go to a $60,000 university to do so. Jump online. Go to a place that has free Wi-Fi and connect.
I see your point, man. I mean, you're bringing up some good points. And like I said, I'm partially playing devil's advocate, but, I did believe some of those things, but what you're saying does make absolutely great sense. And it's something, like you said before, that we need to start those discussions. We need to have them. But the facts are the facts still, man. And like when you look at it, college graduates make a lot more money than people that didn't go to college. And high school graduates make a lot more than high school dropouts. So I think there is still that extrinsic motivation for people to go.
No, man. I think there's three answers to that. I'll say this. Number one is that we were living in a world that just completely rewarded obedience and rewarded conformity. But that's gone. That's going away. I mean, any jobs that reward conformity and obedience are disappearing. They're going overseas. We need innovation right now. We need creativity. We need people to take risks, not be afraid to fail. We need people to learn how to learn as quickly as they can, because once you know a software, bam, it's changed and you got to learn something else. So that's an outdated model. The second thing is that it's not even a fair comparison. I see those all the time, and it's so stupid. We're in a world that does that. Well, you have right now, and I don't mean to stereotype in this as far as just like a type of person, as far as being like hardworking or lazy or anything like that. But man, obviously you are having people that if they finish high school, their life was just going smoother. They were able to follow what they were supposed to do according to society. If they went to college, they were doing what they were supposed to do, and they were able to afford that and stick it out. No kidding, they're making more money, man. Like if you wouldn't even have college, I still think you would take those groups of people and you'd say, okay, so those people that would have gone to college would end up making more money. They were just more motivated to do so. The person who dropped out of high school, they didn't give a crap. They were making a decision that's like, I'll probably make more dropping out of high school. They didn't care. And when they don't have that motivation to do it, of course they're not going to go make more money. Some do, and that's why I'm not trying to, say that goes for all. But that to me is a stupid explanation to it. I really think it is. And the third one is just, it sounds a little bit redundant to the first one, but it's just, so you did have institutions that were training people based on what was valued. You don't anymore. So now you're going to a fairly irrelevant place to go train for the world. I would say most students are going to have to, either on their spare time go learn some real skills, either that or get out, face the real world, fail there. I love the quote. I don't know who said it, but school is all about, teaching lessons and then taking a test. And life is all about you're tested. And when you are, you learn lessons. And then you got to go learn, man. And then you find out, I got to go reflect on this. I got to go learn some stuff. So I would say that the institutions were set up for the way society was, and now they are not. So you will see those numbers change. The studies you're referring to, I think you'll see those studies change big time in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Fair enough. And I don't mean to be the party pooper here, but we are almost out of time. And one last thing we talked about doing was to each recommend a Twitter follow, someone you would follow on Twitter, and then also recommend a book or something that you would read, like a resource. So I'll go first. And first of all, on Twitter, someone that I would recommend that I think, you, Oliver, will really like is Scott McCloud. He puts out a lot of really interesting stuff that challenges the status quo. You can follow him at MCLEOD, McCloud. So that's Scott McCloud, and I highly recommend following him. As far as a book, the best book in education I've read in the past, probably forever, is Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess. Now, that book is that's great stuff. That's great stuff. And if you're on the Twitter, you're following that hashtag TLAP, TLAP, Teach Like a Pirate. That is good stuff. I highly recommend you go buy that book immediately and read it.
Ooh, Ooh, I like those. I like both of those. You kind of stole my thunder with Scott McCloud following him. He has, he challenges the status quo a lot. I do agree with that. I would have mentioned him. So I'll steal your thunder then. I want to say follow on Twitter none other than the author of Teach Like a Pirate, Dave Burgess. So at BurgessDave. That's great stuff, and you follow him. As far as reading, I'm telling you right now, for free, go online, Stop Stealing Dreams by Seth Godin. Best book on education out there, and we're at 20 minutes. Good day.